أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا أقسم بيوم القيامة ولا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات بيجي محمد وآل محمد. We've been discussing this khutbah, or rather these treatises of rights by our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam. And we were talking about the second right that Imam was discussing, and that is the right that belongs to the soul and the nafs of insan. First right was obviously about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the right of God. What are some of the rights of God? We went into the details of that. Then we began the rights of our soul that Imam is discussing. Last week we talked about the first division of the soul, and that was in the form of Nafs Al-Ammara. And we presented the verse from Surah Yusuf, verse number 53, which talks about this word Ammara, and we went into the details of it to an extent. Today, inshallah, we will start with the second division of it, which is Nafs Al-Lawwama. But before I get into that, the whole discussion of nafs is a very interesting discussion. A lot of scholars, ulama akhlaq, ulama kalam, have discussed this in various details. We see even Ma'asumin alayhi salatu wasalam have in fact talked about it in details as well. This one hadith that we receive as far as the exhortation of Rasulullah towards Abu Dhar are concerned, we talked about it in one of our Saturday morning talks as well. Wanted to share briefly over here, as the crowd over here is not the same crowd that is in the Saturday morning, and that's an encouragement so that inshallah you guys can also be part of the Saturday morning discussion as well. That Prophet says to Abu Dhar, Ya Abu Dhar, hasib nafsaka qabla an tuhasab, that hold your nafs accountable before you are held accountable, or before it is held accountable tomorrow. فَهُوَ أَهْوَنُ لِحِسَابِكَ غَدًا. It will be easier for you to keep this accounting tomorrow on the day of judgment. وَزِنْ نَفْسَكَ قَبْلَ أَن تُوزَنْ وَتَجَهَّزْ لِلْأَرْضِ الْأَكْبَرِ يَوْمَ تُعْرَضُ لَا تَخْفَى اللَّهِ خَافِيًا. It's a weigh yourself before you are presented in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be weighed in. Beware that nothing is hidden from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this hisab kitab, which Prophet is also mentioning, and he's referring towards this nafs by saying, hasib nafsaka qabla an tuhasab. We hear this formula or this sentence a lot in different meanings as well, that pray before your prayer is being performed, or you have been prayed upon. This is an exhortation which we also receive, whether it's a hadith or just a slang which is being used. Over here, this is true though. Prophet is saying, do your accountability before you are held accountable, because there's no doubt there will be hisab kitab tomorrow, and therefore you should start doing this hisab kitab from now on. And the example is very simple, that you look at any businessman, anyone who is involved in any type of trade, and even if you're not involved in any type of trade, but let's just give the example of a merchant or the person who takes or does or involved in trading, that they have to have this accountant, or they have to have the department for accounting. Why? Because they want all of their accounts to be straight. And they want the accounting to be done on daily basis, if not weekly basis, if not at least on monthly basis. Why? So that they know what kind of profit they're making, how much inventory they're spending, or how much expenses they're incurring, in order for them to keep a track on their profits and gains and whatnot. The same way Prophet is saying over here to us, that hasib nafsaka, as far as your own personal nafs related things are concerned, whether they be good deeds, well, you don't really need to keep account of the good deeds, but specifically your bad deeds, make sure you keep an account of that on daily basis. So that if you keep an account of that on daily basis, you know they're fresh in your mind and you will not forget about them. Because if you delayed it for a week, next week you won't remember all the bad deeds that you have done. And when you won't remember it, you will not be able to ask for the forgiveness and tawbah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in order for you to repent, in order for you to seek this forgiveness, you need to remember it first. And the way to remember it is that keep an accountability on daily basis. The simple way the ulama akhlaq have mentioned this, because obviously nobody likes to come in, you know, we're sitting over here, we ask individuals, so how many good deeds you've done from morning till now? You know, we'll start mentioning all the good deeds that we have done, but then we turn over and we say, well, let's now mention all the bad deeds that all of us have done from morning till now. I don't think many people will move forward and start naming or mentioning all the bad deeds that they have committed from morning up until now. And if that's the case, as far as we are concerned, because we have this hubbizat, we do not want to be looked bad in front of other people. And when that's the case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, make sure that you have repented for those bad deeds. And the only way to do that is if you keep an account of it on daily basis. So one of the things that ulama akhlaq have mentioned is the threefold formula. They said from morning during the day and at the end of the day at night time. The first thing when you get up in the morning, what should you do? You should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost that He has given you this life again. Because, you know, God knows you would have been dead. You could have been dead the night. But He has given you this life again. You get to live one more day. As Quran also talks about it, that in regards to Allahu yatawaffal anfusa hina mawtiha wallati lam tamut fi manamiha, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes the souls of the people, you know, when they die, and then those people who do not die in their sleep. But He says He lets them live because their life has not ended yet, their qaza has not come yet, but then He takes some of the souls away because their qaza was already there. So He lets you live. If He releases your souls, you'll stay alive and you wake up in the morning again. So you get to live one more day. So you should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first thing in the morning that He has given you another day to live. First thing you should do after that is you should do musharata. Then you should do muraqabah. Then you should do muhasibah. So what is musharata? Musharata comes from the word shart, which is condition. You should set conditions for the day, for yourself, that from morning till night time, I'm going to stay away from these things. Because when you mention this to yourself, and this is between you and your nafs. So musharata, all of these verbs are on babe mufa'ala. That means two bodies or two people are involved in it. Muqabila is between two people. Mudharaba is between two people. So musharata, conditioning, is between two people. What are these two people? You and your nafs. No one else. So what do you set? You set a deal with your nafs saying that, you know, I will not do these things, I'll stay away from these things, all of that, and that will be musharata, that will be condition. Second stage is muraqibah. What do? Muraqibah comes from raqib. You become a watchful eye onto that. You don't become heedless about it, rather you keep an eye on the things that you do, the conditions that you have set, the sharait that you have placed in the morning. Make sure that you stay up on all those sharait throughout the day by watching your nafs. Then no, I gotta stay away from this, I gotta stay away from this. And at the end of the day, when you're going to sleep, you should do muhasabah, that what did you stay away today and what were you able to perform today. And this way, obviously, you will be able to keep an eye on all of your actions that you have done thus far. Salawat Biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so we see in even psychology, we discuss how can a person forget something that easily. And then sometimes we deny them. So first thing what happens is that you forget about that you have done it. Second thing is, then you start denying it. No, I've never done it. Unfortunately, when it comes to sinning, we only believe that killing someone or stealing is a sin. If you say, have you sinned? No, so I haven't killed anyone. I haven't stolen anything, therefore I have not committed any sin yet. No. There are other things which are also in the category as far as the sin is concerned. So first thing is, person forgets easily. Second thing is, they start denying it. The reason is because mistakes and sins, if reminded, will bring shame and disgrace, and we are not inclined to know them. So one thing is hubb-e zat, hubb-e nafs. We love our souls, we love ourselves. That's a better word. We love ourselves. And because we love ourselves, we don't want anything, any type of dirt upon ourselves or upon our souls. And therefore, we kept on denying, no, I haven't done this, I haven't done this. But when it comes to the bargah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there will not be any denying on that day. So Prophet is saying very clearly, he says, حَاسِبْ نَفْسَكَ قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبْ فَإِنَّهُ أَهْوَنُ لِنَفْسِكَ غَدًا. It will be easier for you to go ahead and do the accountability tomorrow. The second type of nafs after nafs amara is Nafs Al-Lawwama, the reproachful self. And the ayat that I recited from Surah Qiyamah, verse number 1 and 2, it says, I do call to witness the resurrection day, and I do call to witness the self-reproaching spirit. And in this, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib ﷺ mentions that Ali ibn Ibrahim to have said that what is meant by the self-reproaching spirit is man's self which disobeys and then blames itself. Kind of connect to what we were discussing before. The first thing you say, well, I haven't done it, then you start denying it. In this over here, what happens is that you disobey, the self disobeys, and then what does it do? Then it blames the self. It says, well, you have done it. I have nothing to do with it. So somehow insan is trying to get rid of this blame from themselves. When someone commits a sin, he is blamed by himself, and then call of the conscience tortures this individual. And that's why we see that this reproaching force within us, this moral conscience, as long as it is alive, it reproaches. But even if that is dead, then you don't see any reproaching at all. So you see in the beginning, when you do something wrong, God forbid, right away you feel this regret. Why did you do it? Why did you do it? But then when you see once that you have done this thing, which is bad in the eyes of the people, as long as in the eyes of the Shariat, but you don't feel any regret about it, that means this reproaching soul is dead. Nobody is going to, this zamir is dead, this conscience is dead, and you will not be now blaming it on anyone, and you will not be blaming yourself either about it. And the example that scholars have mentioned, keeping it or taking it from the ahadith of Masumeen, is that a black dot comes onto the heart of insan. As soon as you commit something, as soon as you sin, what happens? A black dot is placed upon the heart of insan. And then what happens is that when you do it again, another black dot comes upon. You do it again, another black dot comes upon. As long as you keep on doing, black dots keep on increasing. Time comes, the whole heart is covered with black dots. Now there's no way of now reproaching, there's no way of feeling regret, and this is where insan completely loses his hope in this regard. So that is the second type of the soul which is discussed. The third is the adorning self. One of the aspects of human soul is that it attempts to present wicked deeds as nice ones by somehow adorning them and making them look good to us. And we see that a lot. Shaitan does a good job at it by preparing and making things look very presentable and very beautiful, appealing to us. And right away we see something appealing and we go towards it. And that's what the adorning soul is. So what it does, it attempts to present wicked deeds as nice so that we are attracted towards it, thereby encouraging us to perform it. There are two cases cited from the Holy Quran in this regard. First is this, the scenario or the story of Hazrat Yusuf and his brothers. That, the brothers of Hazrat Yusuf, obviously the story is that they were jealous of Hazrat Yusuf because of the fondness that father had with Hazrat Yusuf, because of Hazrat Yusuf's status, becoming the next prophet, and so on and so forth. What do? They go ahead and throw him into the well so that he's away from the father's eyes, and they will eventually become closer to their father. Quran says, وَجَاءُوا عَلَىٰ قَمِيسِهِ بِدَمٍ كَذِبٍ قَالَ بَلْ سَوَّدَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسُكُمْ أَمْرًا فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَىٰ مَا تَصِفُونَ. Surah Yusuf, verse number 18. They presented him with a shirt stained with false blood. Jacob said, your souls have tempted you in this matter. So that Hazrat Yaqub said to them, your souls have tempted you in this matter. قَالَ بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسُكُمْ أَمْرًا. Your souls were the ones who have tempted you in this matter. They made this thing look so nice to you that you went ahead and did it. You did not even realize the fact that what you're doing is to your own brother. Insan goes to the extent that, yes, you shouldn't do bad to anyone. But then when it comes to the family members, insan does not think about harming them at all. But these people went to the extent because of their soul, and it was so controlling them in this matter that they went ahead and they even brought this shirt with stains of blood of their brother. Their father recognized their evil deed. He warned them that it was their minds that had made up a tale. This implies that when selfish desires overwhelm and we let them overcome our mind and spirit, then even the most horrible crimes, such as killing or abandoning one's own brother, as I was mentioning before, might be so adorned in our mind that we consider them holy and obligatory deeds. Just imagine the extent of the crime that they have committed. This guides us towards the recognition of the psychological principle. One's excessive tendencies towards a certain issue are coupled with moral wickedness. So take both things. Excessive tendencies toward a certain issue are coupled with what? Moral wickedness. They will dull our senses and make things look different than really are. Therefore, proper recognition of facts and realities is very important in this regard. And that's why I said later on in Surah Yusuf, verse number 83, قَالَ بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسُكُمْ أَمْرًا فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ أَسَى اللَّهُ أَنْ يَأْتِيَنِي بِهِمْ Jami'an innahu huwal alimul hakim. When he heard this, Hazrat Yaqub said, your souls have tempted you to make up the whole story. This is what you have done earlier, and it tempted you to make up the whole story. Let us be patient, for perhaps God will bring my sons back to me. God is certainly all-knowing and all-wise. We see that this was one example from Quran. Another example of where the soul is tempting is the example of Samiri. Samiri is that person in the time of Hazrat Musa ﷺ, that we read in Quran that when Hazrat Musa went to Koh Tur or the Mount Tur to receive the commandments from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he told his people that he will be gone for 30 days. But his trip was extended, asharatan kamila, 10 more days, and it became 40 days. Samiri fooled the children of Israel in the last 10 days and made them worship the calf. When Moses returned, he encountered the situation. First he blamed who? His brother Harun. But when he realized that Harun had nothing to do with it and he couldn't do anything about it, who does he blame? It obviously comes to Samiri, that it was Samiri's fault, and he blamed Samiri. And this is what he said. He said, قَالَ فَمَا خَطْبُكَ يَا سَامِرِي قَالَ بَصُرْتُ بِمَا لَمْ يَبْصُرُوا بِهِ فَقَبَسْتُ قبضة من أثر الرسول فنبذتها وكذلك سولت لي نفسي. Musa asked, what were your motives, O Samiri? What were you thinking? What were you trying to do? What was your aim behind all of this? He said, I saw what they did not see. Now look at Samiri and his vision. He said, I took handful of dust from messenger's trail and threw it. So what did he do? He made a calf out of this, gold and whatever it was. It was presentable. They all fell for it first of all. But then even to fool them, he needed something extraordinary out of this calf. And so, well, this is something which is made of gold or these, these jewels. Now, what to do? If this calf could only speak, that would really tempt them into performing or worshiping it. What does he do? He said, I picked up some of the dust from the trail of messenger. So let's say the horse of the messenger, as it passed by, he picked up the dust from beneath the feet of the horse of the messenger, and he poured it onto this calf. When he poured it onto the calf started speaking. Look at the power. Here we can take this point out of it, which is worth mentioning, that the sand from the messenger's trail has such effect that the calf made by gold or silver or whatever became lively and started speaking. Just imagine the turab and the khak and the sand beneath the messenger's own feet, how much it would have an effect. And that's why we see that Rasulullah has mentioned in regards to Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, that, "O Ali, if it wasn't for that I feared that these people would do the same in regards to you, what they did in regards to Hazrat Isa, I would mention those attributes of yours, that when you would pass by, people will pick up the sand from beneath your feet and they will take it as tabarruk." So Prophet is saying that I am not mentioning those attributes. By not mentioning so many attributes and manaqib of Ali ibn Abi Talib are out there, just imagine if Rasulullah had mentioned them. So here, Samiri did this. Samiri was a corrupt, selfish man. He was able to use his ingenuity, courage, and his skills to deploy the weakness of the Bani Israel to make a great rebellion. Thus, they ignored all of the previous teaching of Hazrat Musa and started to worship the calf. Obviously, in this situation, Samiri claimed that the evil deeds were rooted in his adorning soul by saying, "Thus did my soul suggest to me." So my soul was the one that misled me into doing this, and so it adorned it to me, and therefore I was able to mislead this individual. So that was the third, and the adorning soul. And the fourth is the confident soul, or the confident self, the one which has the highest ranks among the self. We read in the following verse of Quran, "Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyya. Fadkhuli fi ibadi wadkhuli jannati." O soul at peace, return to your Lord, pleased and pleasing. Then enter among my servants and enter my paradise. I don't want to continue into it. My time's running out. Inshallah, we'll talk about this last Nafs al-Mutmain because it's more detailed than the other souls. Inshallah, we'll talk about it next week. But just connection with it, we see that these words that are being mentioned by our fourth Imam, and these days which are also associated with our fourth Imam. We see, and we talk about the Masaib of Imam Hussein, but we sometimes neglect to see the Masaib of this fourth Imam of ours. That when Imam went into the battlefield, and when Imam was leaving and going into the battlefield, Ali ibn Hussein wanted to help Imam Hussein. But Ali ibn Hussein was told by Imam Hussein that shahadat is not something which is difficult for us. We're always presented ourselves with shahadat. But what is difficult is what you're going to go through. And that is being paraded through the streets of Kufa and paraded through the streets of Sham. And even parading would not have been that bad. Heck, it was not with the ladies of the household of Rasulullah alongside with you without any veils upon their heads. And that's why we see that when Imam Zainul Abidin comes back to Medina, that he was always in the state of mourning, and when he would be asked as to what was the time that was the worst upon you, he always mentioned Asham, Asham, Asham. The calamities that fell upon us in the city, in Damascus, in Sham, in Syria, were the worst upon us. Asham, Asham, Asham. Imam would repeat these words. And the person would say, Imam, you're masoom, you're infallible. How can we give you pursa, or how can we console your heart? You're already masoom, you're already at that level, you're infallible. So stop the mourning, you have cried enough. Haven't you cried enough? You've been crying for such a long time. Imam replied by saying that you have not done justice to us. Hazrat Yaqub lost his son for a few years, who came back to him. He cried so much that Quran says, وَبْيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ, that his eyes became white and he was blinded because of the crying and the mourning and the weeping that he did in the loss of his son, who later on came back. He said, what I saw was the 18 Jawan and the Shabab and the youth of this household of Rasulullah, household of Ali and Batul, being butchered and killed in front of me. And you're saying that I should not weep over them, that I should not cry over them? Just look at the musibah that Imam goes through. Imam lived for another 35 years or 34 years after the event of Karbala. In the year 95, Imam himself was poisoned by Walid ibn Abdul Malik, and Imam alayhi salatu wasalam was buried in Jannatul Baqi. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin al-ma'sumin. Let us ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to follow the steps that Ma'sumin ﷺ had laid out in front of us. O Allah, give us the tawfiq to be able to follow the teachings of Ahlul Bayt ﷺ. O Allah, hasten the zuhur of our awaited Imam and make us among the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.